The strangest border on earth, the village split in two by Belgium and the Netherlands. You wake up and step out of your front door. Your left foot is in Belgium. Your right foot is in the Netherlands. You are not at a checkpoint. You are not at an airport. You are standing in the middle of your own living room threshold, and the law of two separate sovereign nations applies to each half of your body. This is not a thought experiment. This is Tuesday morning in baarle-hertog in baarle-nassau, and for the people who live here, this is simply life. But how does a village end up split in half? How does a border cut through a house, through a shop, through a restaurant table? And what does it actually mean to live inside one of the most legally paradoxical places on the planet? To understand that, you have to go back. Not a decade, not a century. You have to go back to the Middle Ages, to a time when land was not a line on a map but a collection of deals, inheritances, feudal pledges, and marriages between powerful families who treated territory the way you might trade furniture. You are now a peasant farmer in the year 1198. You are standing on flat, wet, unremarkable land in what will eventually become the border region of modern Belgium and the Netherlands. You do not know that yet. You do not know what Belgium is. You do not know what the Netherlands is. What you know is who owns the field you are standing in, who owns the road you walk on, and who you owe your harvest to. That is the Duke of Brabant. And across the path from your field, that strip of land belongs to the Lord of Breda. These are not the same man. And they are not neighbors who agreed on anything. For the next several centuries, the boundary between the territories controlled by the Lords of Breda and the Dukes of Brabant would be negotiated, contested, traded, and subdivided in ways that made no geographical sense whatsoever. Historian Raymond Cubbon, writing on the legal history of the Low Countries, has described this process as the slow accumulation of jurisdictional accidents, where property rights were assigned field by field, farm by farm, with no overarching plan and no coherent map. This is what geographers call a patchwork territory. Not a line, not a block, but a mosaic. Pieces of land scattered inside other pieces of land, like islands inside islands. The technical term is an enclave. An enclave is a piece of territory that belongs to one political entity but is completely surrounded by the territory of another. When that enclave itself contains a smaller piece of the first territory inside it, that is called a counter-enclave. Baarle has both. It has 22 Belgian enclaves inside the Netherlands, and inside several of those Belgian enclaves, there are 8 Dutch counter-enclaves. Let that sit for a moment. Belgium inside the Netherlands, and the Netherlands inside Belgium, inside the Netherlands. By the time the modern border between Belgium and the Netherlands was formally established in the 19th century, these medieval property quirks had hardened into national borders. The 1843 Treaty of Maastricht, which settled the boundary between the newly independent Kingdom of Belgium and the Kingdom of the Netherlands, had to contend with this already impossibly tangled web of land ownership. Rather than rationalize it, the treaty simply preserved it. The enclave stayed. The counter-enclave stayed. The border stayed exactly as complicated as it had been for 600 years, now drawn not between lords and dukes but between two sovereign nation-states. And then people had to live inside it. So let us recreate one of your days, if you are a resident of Baarle today. You wake up. The nation you wake up in depends entirely on which side of your bed is closest to the front door, because the front door determines your nationality for tax purposes. Belgian residents pay Belgian taxes. Dutch residents pay Dutch taxes. And for decades, Dutch taxes were lower. Which meant that in the 20th century, some residents of Baarle simply moved their front door to the Dutch side of their house. Not figuratively. Literally. They relocated the physical door. Tax authorities in both countries had to issue guidance on exactly this situation. You get dressed and walk outside. On the pavement beneath your feet, you will see a line of small white crosses embedded in the street, or a set of metal studs, marking exactly where one country ends and another begins. The municipality of baarle-hertog, the Belgian side, and baarle-nassau, the Dutch side, maintain parallel administrations in the same geographic footprint. 2 mayors. 2 sets of municipal offices. 2 police forces with overlapping jurisdictions. 2 sets of business licenses required if your shop straddles the line. And some shops do straddle the line. There is a restaurant in Baarle where the border runs directly through the dining room. The tables are marked. You can choose to eat your meal in Belgium or in the Netherlands. For years, the two countries had different closing times for restaurants. Dutch law required earlier closure, so when Dutch police arrived to enforce closing time, the owner would simply move the customers to the Belgian tables. Same building. Same food. Different country. Technically legal. Cultural geographer Alexander Folds, who has studied legally divided communities across Europe, calls this kind of adaptive behavior jurisdictional arbitrage, the way ordinary people learn to navigate the gap between where a line is drawn and how life actually works. You do not fight the border. You work around it. You learn its shape the way you learn a familiar road. And the people of Baarle have been learning that shape for longer than most nations have existed. During the Second World War, the boundary became something sharper than an administrative curiosity. Nazi Germany occupied the Netherlands. But the Belgian enclaves inside the Netherlands were technically Belgian territory, and Belgium, though also occupied, fell under a different administrative zone. In some parts of Baarle, a Jewish family who moved from a Dutch address to a Belgian address a few streets over was, in principle, under a different legal framework. Historian Luc van Weyer has documented how residents of border communities across Belgium and the Netherlands used precisely this kind of jurisdictional ambiguity to shelter people, to move contraband, to resist occupation in ways that were technically not illegal in the patch of ground they were standing on. A border designed by feudal accident became, for a time, a tool of survival. What does this tell you? It tells you that borders are not natural features of the land. They do not follow rivers because rivers are logical. They do not follow mountain ranges because mountains are convenient. They follow the interests, accidents, and negotiations of whoever was powerful enough to draw them. Geographer Halford Mackinder, writing in 1904 in his foundational essay on the geographical pivot of history, argued that geography shapes the destiny of civilizations not through fixed laws of nature but through the choices that human power makes within a landscape. Baarle is Mackinder's argument in miniature. The land is completely flat. There is no river, no ridge, no natural feature that would suggest a border. The border is here because two medieval lords could not agree on who owned a field. And 800 years later, the border is still here. There are currently around 9,000 people living across the two municipalities of Baarle. They go to the same schools. They shop in the same stores. They attend the same local football matches. Many of them have lived on both sides of the border over the course of their lifetimes, not by emigrating but simply by moving house. Children born in baarle-hertog are Belgian citizens. Children born in the house next door are Dutch citizens. The maternity ward that serves the town is in the Dutch part. Nationality, in Baarle, is not a matter of identity. It is a matter of address. And that raises a question that is not specific to Baarle. How many of the things you believe define you, your country, your culture, your legal rights, are the product of choices made by people who lived centuries before you, for reasons that had nothing to do with you? The Duke of Brabant did not know you existed. The Lord of Breda was not thinking about your morning commute. And yet the deal they struck in a medieval field, over cattle pasture and grain taxes, is still determining which tax authority sends you a bill in the 21st century. The border in Baarle is marked in the street with small white crosses. Some of the people who walk over those crosses every day do not even look down. Which means the most extraordinary thing about living inside one of the most legally complex territories on earth is the same thing that is true everywhere else. You get used to it. You step over the border. And you go about your day. Just as you did when you woke up this morning, left foot in one country, right foot in another, without a second thought. Because for you, this is not remarkable. This is just home.